Are you a ham radio operator getting into digital sound card modes like PSK31, radio teletype, or something more exotic? This video describes downloading and setting up the popular and free FLDIGI sound card software for your station. I'm Dave Kassler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG, and welcome to Ask Dave, episode 26, continuing our discussion of HF digital modes. This episode is focused on the digital sound card software called FLDIGI. We'll look at downloading it, installing it, and provide an overview of getting it to work with your radio. Fundamentally, there are four elements to a digital ham radio station: the computer, the sound card, the software, and the radio. I talked about the general theory in Ask Dave episode 25. There are many software packages out there for doing HF digital modes. A very popular one that is free is FLDIGI, otherwise known as the Fast Light Digital Modem Application. It was developed by Dave Fries, W1HKJ, and is updated and maintained by Dave and a team of developers. My hat is off to them. FLDIGI is a top-notch application for a wide range of digital modes. So let's dive right into it. Go to Google and do a search on FLDIGI. Choose the link to www.w1hkj.com. Here's the main FLDIGI page. There are many things of interest here, but first let's go to the downloads. Like many free software products, the actual files are available via SourceForge, so click here to go to SourceForge. Here's what you'll see at SourceForge. Note the link that gives the so-called latest version. Before you click on it, though, let's look at the directory structure underneath. The first is the alpha tests directory. An alpha test in computer lingo means a version that's ready for people to test and play with, but it isn't a fully stable production version. Let's take a peek inside the alpha tests directory. We see here the latest versions that have been released for alpha testing. These will eventually become production versions, but aren't yet. So let's go back up a level. Here's that directory structure again. Note FLDIGI. Let's see what's in there. Okay, here's the folder that has the production software, meaning that these versions have been tested and are stable. Note that the word stable doesn't mean crash-proof, but they're pretty good. There are a bunch of versions here. The one we want for the Windows operating system is the top one that has setup in its name. So we'll follow standard Windows procedures. A single click will do. SourceForge makes us wait several seconds while it flashes advertisements at us, and then this Windows screen appears. I'm using Windows 10 here. I've created an FLDIGI folder in my Downloads folder as a place to put the setup file. I download it and note that it's more current than the version I had on my laptop. At this point, use the standard download procedures for your computer. You download the file. Your antivirus software will examine the downloaded file and must accept it as OK. Double-click on it. Once you've installed it, it will put a shortcut on your desktop. Here's what you get when you open FLDIGI. Lots of little boxes and some big areas. This big one is where you will see the received text. The bluish area is where you type text that will be sent. These buttons along here are customizable macros that send a block of text with just the push of a button or a mouse click. This area under here is the waterfall, where we find actual signals that are on the air. And over here is a little signal scope that tells us about the signal we're receiving. But before we can use any of this, we need to configure the software. The very first time you run the software, it will walk you through the configuration steps. Please be patient as you set up the software because it'll be different for every sound card and radio out there. I can go through the general steps, but you'll need to apply them to your situation. Here's another example of why it's a good idea to belong to a local amateur radio club, as you'll be able to tap into the expertise of those who have done this before. As I mentioned in Ask Dave 25, there are lots of ducks here and they all need to be in a row. The very first thing you'll need to do is click on the Configure button. It shows lots of options. As it happens, they're all available on the same screen. So click on the Operator menu item. Here's what pops up. Note that there are lots of options across the top row. The first screen is for the operator. Insert your call sign in all caps, your name, your location, or QTH, and a couple other optional fields, your Maidenhead grid locator, in my case DM68CG, and my antenna, a Butternut HF9V ground-mounted vertical. The next step is to point FLDIGI at the correct sound card. This step is critical. Click on Audio and then on Devices. For Windows, click on Port Audio. The capture sound card is the one that receives the audio from the radio's line out. Your USB sound card will appear in this list and will likely show up as a microphone. Now the next one, called Playback, is the one that outputs sound that will go to the radio's line in. Now, while still under Audio, click on Right Channel. You may have to play a bit with this, but in the meantime, click on Modem Signal on left and right channels. I had to do this for my radio, and you likely will have to also. Now, we approach the potentially tricky challenge of rig control. There are two aspects of this. First, being able to tell the rig when to go into transmit and when into receive. Note that you don't absolutely have to do this, as you can set up the rig's Vox system to put the rig into transmit whenever it hears the tones from the sound card output. But I prefer that the software do the transmit determination and use the rig's push-to-talk system properly. Second, the other reason you can use rig control is that the software can actually control the radio for such things as frequency, mode, etc. I prefer this, and I've achieved it with my FTDX 3000, but it took me quite a bit of experimentation to get it right. Be particularly patient here if you want this feature to work. Still in the configuration menu, select Rig, then go to HamLib for the ham library. Select the button that says Use HamLib. Use the drop-down list to pick your radio. Note that you'll need also to select the device that controls your radio, usually a COM port, or if it's USB, it'll be a virtual COM port. You need to set the baud rate and stop bits that work with your radio. Again, be prepared to experiment, as this is the step that can be the most challenging. I point out the tab that says XML-RPC, which is computer jargon for connecting with another piece of software. As it turns out, there's companion software called FLRig, and if you install that, it may make rig connections easier. As it turns out in my case, I needed to use it. You may not need to. As it turns out, you can't easily set audio levels inside of FLDIGI like you can in some other programs. So, you will need to use the Windows method for setting levels for your sound card. You need to do this for the incoming sound from the radio's line-out connection to the sound card microphone connection. And you'll need to do this for speaker out, which goes to your radio's line-in. The levels are set using Windows. Click on Start and then simply type the words Control Panel. Windows 10 will find the desktop app named Control Panel. Click on this. This brings you to the control panel. Yours may be organized differently from this. You can select the view as small icons. The one we want is Sound. Click on it. Okay, note the menu across the top. Playback and recording are the two we're interested in. It defaults to playback, and listed are the audio output devices attached to your computer. The top one is my normal laptop sound card and is selected as the default device. We'll leave it as the default device. The bottom one is the sound card we're interested in. Note that it says USB audio codec or something similar. Click on it and then select Properties. Here's what you get, showing the properties for the sound card output. Then select Levels from the menu. This gives you the ability to control the output level to your transceiver. You will need to click on Tune in the FLDIGI application, which will put out a constant amplitude tone. You can use your station dummy load for this operation. Then you adjust your transceiver such that the ALC light doesn't come on, or however your rig adjusts audio levels. Also, you want to set up your mic gain. Basically, set the mic gain where you normally would. Then adjust the sound card output level to the point where making it any higher doesn't affect the power out. Then back off from this point to a somewhat reduced power. This way you aren't triggering the ALC, or automatic level control. If it triggers the ALC, it will distort the audio, and you don't want that. Also, adjust your power out so that it's much less than the normal output. For example, if you have a 100-watt rig, you want to set the power out for about 25 to 35 watts max. That keeps the RF circuits very linear, and it keeps the rig from overheating because of the 100% duty cycle. Plus, you really don't need much power for PSK31 anyway. Okay, let's go back to the sound menu and click Recording. This is for sounds coming from the radio into the sound card. Again, click Properties, then you'll click Levels. You'll see the levels control here. You'll adjust this to give you the right input levels for FLDIGI. Okay, now switch your radio to a live feed so that we have audio of PSK31 signals. Tune around 14.070 during the day and early evening, and 7.070 during the evening. You'll find that the waterfall will show signals. Fundamentally, blue on the waterfall indicates no signal, and the warmer the color is, the stronger the signal. So, adjust it so that you can easily see the signals. If the very strongest signals show a bit of red, back off just a bit, and you're adjusted about right. You're now adjusted for both input and output sounds, and in theory, you're ready to operate. We'll cover operating in the next video with some sample QSOs pointing out the features in FLDIGI that make sound card operating easy once you're set up. This episode's photo makes me think ahead to spring. The flower shown is the columbine, Colorado's state flower. They're found in the high country, and this specimen is near Clear Lake in San Juan County, above tree line. Spring comes very late to the high country, and the wildflowers are at their best at the end of July and the beginning of August. This photo was taken on August 8th. It just goes to show that if you're in the August of your life, you can still bloom. I hope this brief summary has helped. If you liked this video, please share it with your friends. I urge you to subscribe to my channel so that you can get notification of future videos. I have a tip jar on my YouTube channel page and also on my website at ke0og.net. The whole purpose of this series is to answer your questions about ham radio, especially those of interest to those new to the hobby. You can ask questions by commenting on any of my videos on YouTube, preferably on the one most directly related to your question, or you can pose a question directly at www.ke0og.net/ask-Dave. Until we next meet, 73.